I've been an educator, 7 as a classroom teacher.
On Facebook Tuesday at 7. The Collaborative. Who we have? We have our leaders. We have our teachers and our parents. We have our authors. Story time at the end. Solving problems in our education system. Phenomenal women. Join them on Facebook Tuesday at 7. The Collaborative. It's that time. You're Wilshika and Tammy. The Collaborative. Phenomenal ladies. It's educational. It's on the Facebook. The Collaborative. The Collaborative.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to this week's edition of The Collaborative. We are so super excited to have you guys join us. Hey, Shika.
Hey, Tammy. Yes, we have an awesome lineup today. How was your day today down in Great Falls?
It was great. We had testing today. What about you guys?
It was good. It was an eventful day. You know, it's middle school, so
Yes,
you
of
know
course.
how that goes.
Yes, yes.
So, who do we have with us today?
We actually are so blessed. I am so super starstruck and humbled to have Principal Kafele with us. I mean, I'm no words. We are just so super excited to have him to join us.
Definitely. And when we're on with him on Saturdays, he says he's in the building. So I get to say Principal Kafele is in the building with the collaborative today.
Welcome to Principal Kafele.
Yes. So if you are joining us in Facebook land, if you would just put in the comments if you are an educator, a parent, a community member. I see we have Principal Hurt with us. I can't wait to see my mentor, Principal Kafele. He's got his popcorn ready. Just let us know where you're tuning in from. It is our goal for this conversation to spread high and wide and to bring several people together around educational topics so that we can restore respect to the fields being in different silos and pointing fingers. It's better for us to come together and try to fight the good fight for education and bring a true change about to our field.
Absolutely. And who better to help us do that than none other than Principal Kafele. So super stoked. We can bring him on so I can introduce people. And I know that this is the gentleman who needs no introduction because he is an educational giant in the field of leadership. And we are humbled to have you, Principal Kafele, but because we have to give you a proper introduction, I do want to share with folks who we have this evening. And again, everybody, we're so humbled to have none other than Principal Baruti Kafele, a highly regarded urban educator in New Jersey for more than 20 years, has distinguished himself as a master teacher and a transformational school leader. As an elementary school teacher in East Orange, New Jersey, in addition to being named the East Orange School District and Essex County Public Schools Teacher of the Year, Principal Kafele was a finalist for New Jersey State Teacher of the Year and a recipient of the New Jersey Education Association Award of Excellence. As a middle school and high school principal, Principal Kafele led the transformation of 4 New Jersey urban schools, including the mighty Newark Tech, which went from a low-performing school in need of improvement to national recognition, and which was recognized 3 times by U.S. News and World Report as one of America's best high schools. Amazing. One of the most sought after school leadership experts and education speakers in America, Principal Kafele is impacting America's schools. He has delivered over 2,000 conference and program keynotes, professional development workshops, parenting seminars, and student assemblies over his 34 years of public speaking. An expert in the area of attitude transformation, Principal Kafele is the leading authority on providing effective classroom and school leadership strategies toward closing what he coined the attitude gap. In addition to writing several professional articles for popular education journals, he has authored 11 books, including his 6 ASCD bestsellers, Motivating Black Males to Achieve in School and Life, Closing the Attitude Gap, The Teacher 50, Is My School a Better School Because I Lead It, The Principal 50, and The Assistant Principal 50. His next book, and we are all so excited and cannot wait, The Equity and Social Justice Education 50, will be released in May 2021. Principal Kafele is the recipient of over 150 educational professional, and community awards, which include the prestigious Milken National Educator Award, the National Alliance of Black School Educators Hall of Fame Award, induction into the East Orange, New Jersey Hall of Fame, recognition as one of the world's top 30 education professionals for 2020 and 2021 by Global Guru's Top 30, and the city of Dickinson, Texas, proclaiming February 8th, 1998 as Baruti Kafele Day. We are so honored to have you, Principal Kafele, and we do not take this opportunity lightly. So thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, we are truly, as Tammy stated, humbled and honored. And as Shawn Hurt mentioned, you're his mentor, but those of us that are in education and have been following you for years, you are all of our mentors.
Even though you don't know it.
Right.
We claim you.
I'm humbled.
So everyone that comes to the collaborative, we always ask, what are you reading? And every Saturday we admire that library behind you, sitting behind you. If you ever do, you don't need another stream of income, but if you want one, if you open your home up after the coronavirus and do tours of your home just to look at the library, people would pay good money to see it. So tell us what you're reading.
Yeah, I just finished reading a book and I need to jump into another one called The Dead Are Rising. It's a book written by the late author Les Payne about the life of Malcolm X. So there's a plethora of books out there on Malcolm since his assassination back in 1965. But this was just another one with some new research, with some very eye-opening information. And it's the last one I read recently. Okay.
And you always share great books that we should all be reading. So I knew that you would have something great to share with us.
Yeah.
Tammy and I we work with a lot of independent authors that are children's book authors. So a lot of times we're reviewing their books. This is one called Mandy Tangled in a Web. And it's basically about a young lady who would like a pet, but her mother is reluctant. So I can identify with that. My daughters would like a puppy, but I don't think we're ready for that yet. It'll be one more thing for mommy to do. And daddy's also, he knows he'll be walking it. So we're still deciding it. But this is written by Stacey Garden. She's an African-American female photographer out of Greenville, South Carolina. So we just like to highlight some of their work as well.
Great book.
Good stuff.
And because we're an education show, we always have our segment on this day in history. And today is a very important day. It marks the 1 year since the murder of George Floyd. And this was a day that really awakened something in people across the world. And I don't want to say it ignited, because I think people have been fighting for social justice and equity for some time, but it definitely awakened people across the world. So we definitely want to remember him in his power, that, this truly was an event that marked something, and we're still continuing the fight.
That's right.
And what we usually do as well, just to get to know our guests, one of the problems that we've been trying to help with educators solve is just engagement. So they're saying they've been having those problems in the classroom, engaging students. So Would You Rather is something that truly helps to engage with students. It will let you get to know your students better. So when our guests come on, we do a little round of that. This is something we created, the School Administration Edition, where we're just getting to know who you were as a leader. So as a school leader, did you eat on the go, or did you sit down to your meals?
As a young rookie leader, I ate on the go.
Mm-hmm.
As a seasoned leader, or a better word would be a leader with wisdom, I ate in the cafeteria with the students at their table. No supervision.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the next one is, did you have an open door policy, or did people have to go through the secretary to get to you?
You go right to me. The problem is with an open door, I was never in there. I prided myself on that. But no layers to get to me. You know, you had access. Every student in the building had my cell number. So every student, and some of them still have it because they reach out from time to time. But yeah, you just reach right out to me.
That's awesome.
It is, really.
Yes. And with campus school retreats, did you all do those off campus or on campus, or a combination of both?
Pretty much in our situation on campus, unfortunately. That's one of the things I'd like to go back and do it over and be off campus.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that was just something where, you know, those are some things that we wonder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So one of the things that you had posted an article on your site, on your page, about some states, 4 states, Idaho, Iowa, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. They have passed some legislation that places limits on how teachers can discuss race. And what was cited in the article was basically that these people who think that these things would be controversial say that they are divisive. They're likely to make students feel guilt and anguish around these topics. And my first thought was, you know, so you must be only talking about one set of students if you're saying that they're going to feel guilt and anguish. What about the students who hear things but don't feel empowered?
Yeah.
So what's your reflection? What do you have to say to that topic and to this legislation?
Yeah, you know, it's caught my attention in a big way. Today was the second time I actually posted about this this push to ban what they're calling critical race theory in that first 4 set of schools, moving on to, I guess there's at least 15 others, and it may be even more than that. But it's interesting for me because up until now, I've never used that language, critical race theory. I mean, it's just never come out of my mouth. I've always known what it was, but I never had a need to use it. Because see, when I talk race relative to blacks and whites in America, my conversation or my discussion on race is always rooted in history. Because I always say, like, you take, for example, with this being the 1-year anniversary of the 9 minutes and 29-second murder of George Floyd, with myself, with just the volume of educators that reached out to me last summer, my white educator colleagues who were reaching out to me last summer, wanting me to recommend books that they could read so that they can understand the outrage across the country. My thing was, I'm not going to recommend books that critique racism. If I do that, you'll read it, you'll have an understanding of what racism is, but you won't understand what got us to this point. And I'm going to just reach it on my shelf here. For me, I always recommend this book first. Before the Mayflower. This is a very old copy, so it won't look like this when you buy it. But Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. In order to understand the rage of Black people with George Floyd situations, but then also folks who are not going to be as well publicized or well known. In order to understand that rage, to understand that pain, you've got to understand what got us here in the first place. So you got to go back to 1619. You got to know the 17th century. You got to know the 18th century. You got to know the 19th century, 20th century, all the way up to today. And then it begins to make sense because we're talking about pain that's ancestral deep. So when we talk about legislators that want to ban critical race theory from schools, as I said, and I gave a little commentary in my post today, and as I said, that doesn't bother me too much. See, where I'm focused as it relates to that is curriculum, instruction, and textbooks. See, American history, there should be theoretically no need for a book like this or any book in this house.
Mm-hmm.
All these books are African American history. Every book in this house, my son has a whole library himself. It's the same stuff. That's what it is. But there would be no need for that.
Right.
Because if the truth of American history is told, then that information is in the American history text, because Black people are uniquely American. We're that one group that was not that came here involuntarily. That one group. So we're that one group that can't necessarily hop on the phone and call somebody back on the west coast of Africa and say, I think I'm gonna come back home for about a week or two or a month or whatever the case may be. Unless we've done research and we've discovered some kinfolk on the African continent, we don't have that luxury. This is home, right? So we're uniquely American, but our story has been either trivialized, it's been marginalized, it's been caricatured, or it's been omitted completely from curriculum. So when I talk about race, to bring it full circle now, I don't have to talk about race in a way that addresses what these bills are addressing in terms of folks feeling however they feel and pitting Black against white. All I have to do is tell the truth about history. And as I said in the post, anything I say about race, anything I say about history, it's well documented. So whatever I say, I can back it up, right? With documentation. So again, because I don't want people to get so caught up into, oh man, they banning critical race theory. No. What the focus should be, teaching history the way it happened. So being accurate in how we teach history, so that when we talk about, for example, I'm just going to give this brief example, Reconstruction, right? And the Great Compromise right before. So when we talk about that and everything that emanated out of that, right, and then post Reconstruction, I don't have to offend anybody. All I have to do is be truthful in what happened. In terms of that compromise that ended Reconstruction. That's all I have to do is be truthful. As we're being truthful about what American history is, just like the 1619 Project, then we let the chips fall where they may in terms of how that impacts other people. Now, I will say this, and I know I said I was going to stop. Let me just add just one more thing. When I started recommending books of this nature on the internet on social media last summer, after George Floyd's murder, a lot of teachers said to me, they were posting on Twitter, tweeting on Twitter, they were saying, wow, I'm angry. I mean, several. I'm angry because I read the books that you recommended. I thought they were getting ready to come at me about something. They said, I'm angry because I've been a teacher for 20 years. I've been a teacher for 25 years. I've been a teacher for 30 years. And I never heard this before. The things you said in the seminar, because it's usually somebody that was in one of my audience, the things you said in the seminar, I never heard that before. So I went on and got the books you recommended. And I'm reading these books. I feel like I've been lying to children for 25, 30 years because I never heard this. I never, like I talk about Lewis Latimer a lot. I never heard of Lewis Latimer, they'll say to me. I thought it was on Thomas Edison with the light bulb. I didn't know that these lights are Black man, right? Because you've been lied to. Right. The story hasn't been told.
And that's interesting, Principal Kafele. I think that it is so powerful that you speak to that missing piece in curriculum, because even in this legislation that they're trying to pass, it's masking the real problem, because unless you are writing a dissertation or you really are a true civil rights activist, you really rarely talk about critical race theory. Yeah. It's the thing that is that deep rooted in those embedded biases that we face, because we don't see the accuracy of the history that we really have represented in any curriculum. I've never seen it in anything that I've experienced.
Thank you.
And what you talked about, Principal Kafele, with people having that epiphany, Tammy and I had that epiphany not too long ago. And, women don't like to tell their age, but I'm blessed to be 43 years young. At age of 43, coming to the Black Educators Rock Conference, hearing you, Dr. Akua, and we brought Dr. Akua in to do a lot of cultural relevancy training with the teachers and the students. And everyone, all of the teachers on the staff, including myself, had never heard many of the things that he talked about, and how it was so much more empowering than hearing that your story starts with slavery.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we bring people in, when we have mass assemblies, sometimes the students are slouching down or they're, not paying attention. But when they heard that, you could tell, there was a difference in their demeanor, their stature, their poise. That curriculum makes a difference in students, especially African-American students who need to hear this empowerment. And like you said, it's the truth.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Shika's right. Like it isn't just about the empowering of the kids, because that's really important as well. But we were sitting there looking at each other. You guys were really just bringing it. And we're sitting there like, I feel like I've been living under a rock or something. I don't even know where these gentlemen are getting this information. And you guys are, very serious about what you do. So we didn't want to just like raise our hand to say, please tell us more. But that really was what it sparked in us. Like we really need to learn ourselves so that we can bring others with us.
But I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I thought you had finished. When you raise your hand to say, "Please tell me more," that's a good thing. Because like someone like myself, someone like Dr. Akua, we understand. That's why we do it. And it's like I didn't realize until last summer that so many folks that were born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, did not know of Black Wall Street. See, I knew that folks outside of Oklahoma didn't know, right? But I was shocked when people started writing to me, because I was posting about it because of the controversy with the former president speaking there on Juneteenth. So I started posting about it, and people started writing me privately, or some even on the thread, that listen, Kafele, I was born and raised in Tulsa. I went to school in Tulsa. And we didn't know about this. I'm watching 60 Minutes last Sunday, and the gentleman said that he challenged his professor who was talking about Tulsa. He said, I'm born and raised in Tulsa. I ain't never heard this before. So it was swept under a rug, and now it's coming out. But Tulsa is just one example. There's so much. It's so vast in terms of that information. One of the things, I did a little reading on Las Vegas to give you this example. So we all know the Las Vegas Strip. What I didn't know until about last year is Black Vegas. So they had Black Vegas, all these hotels that were Black owned, right? And ultimately they were ran out of business, but it existed for a long period of time. So you had entertainers, particularly Black entertainers, going to Black Vegas.
Wow.
To perform. Black owned hotels, right in Las Vegas. It's just so much. In terms of that economic front, so much that we have done relative to economics and business and entrepreneurship that we just don't know. Because that story of Wall Street, Black Wall Street, that dollar never had to leave leave the community, because everything they needed was there. Community.
Right. What is so infuriating, though, about this legislation is that, we are already, as African-American or, people who really are serious about making sure children know the truth, we're already kind of walking on eggshells and tiptoeing around things. So now this, gives people more power to silence or dictate what's being taught. At the beginning of the year, when we were coming back to school, one of the things that I did for my staff, I wanted children that had been home since the pandemic, be able to have a healthy discussion. So I found a recording that the teachers could play and allow them to have healthy dialogue. Well, that hit the papers that I was teaching Black Lives Matter when all the all the students were doing was having a discussion about what was happening, because I felt like they needed to be able to learn how to have a healthy dialogue in the classroom. So the district did support me, but there's several districts that would not have supported me, or there's several superintendents who would not have supported me, and I might have been back in a classroom somewhere. How does your new book, and tell us about your new book, how is your new book going to help school leaders and teachers who want to have these healthy dialogues with students? How is your book going to help?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because that was what you just said was the reason that I wrote it. You know, outside of it being just my, you know, I dedicated it to the lives of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I wrote that the motivation to write it was, wow, all these folks looking for information. I need to put it out there because a lot of what's in the book I've never seen anywhere else. So in turn, particularly the social justice side. So to say, people are asking, like, what do you mean by social justice education? And what they think I mean is bringing, so since this is May 25th, bringing the George Floyd discussion into the classroom. Well, I do mean that, but I don't solely mean that. Because see, when we talk about, like I always say, the world outside, I'm just pointing to my front window now, the world outside, and let's call right here the classroom. I always say to teachers, I say, be reminded that there is no line of demarcation between the world outside where the students arrive into the building from, and the world inside the classroom. When they arrive at the front door, they're not going to check their world at the front door and then come in vanilla, so to speak. They're bringing their world into the classroom with them. So since that's coming with them, because it shaped them, it molded them, it fashioned them into shape, it nurtured them, we can't discount it or ignore it. So while they're in there, whatever those social justice, racial justice issues are, they're bringing that with them, whether they know that or not. So therefore, teacher, I'm saying teacher, you have to have a knowledge base. You've got to know them more than a name on a roster. You've got to know them more than a youngster that sits in a chair, in a desk, and therefore this narrow view of who this youngster is. You got to have a broader understanding of the youngster and thereby the community. Because see, the way that I define social justice education, to give you the informal definition, I'm saying that it's a student-centered exploration, examination, and assessment of the world upon which the student exists, but through the student's lens, not the lens of the teacher. And the reason that I put a lot of emphasis on it that way is because I'm thinking about a situation like January 6th, right? Let's say a January 6th participant, a patriot, let's say that the next, on January 7th, they go back to school to teach, like somebody out there, because I'm sure there were teachers there. So now you go back, you climbed up the side of the Capitol, you busted some windows, you brought a Confederate flag with you, you sprayed bear spray at a cop, you know, whatever it was, and now you go back to teach the next day. Well, if I put the power in the hands of the teacher could take social justice and say, this is what I was practicing. So I said, I can't take that chance, because if it's a teacher who looks at the world like we do, I'm fine. But the problem is we represent a minority in schools across the country, right? Between Black women and Black men, we're talking 7 to 8%. So there's a majority that don't look like you. So I said, I can't put that in the hands of the teacher. I got to put it in the hands of the student. So we're talking about this student-centered exploration of the world, examination, assessment of the world through the lens of the student, right? And then it goes on, but I'll just stay at that point. That's where I want. So the teacher, therefore, is never the focus of discussion. The teacher has a role, but it's a facilitator role. And I'm saying even with the youngest children in a school, it's still about the children, because when it becomes about the teacher, then it's no longer social justice education. It's teacher-driven indoctrination. And so that's, you know, in writing the book, I didn't want to run that risk that some teacher with that January 6th mentality now goes into the classroom and starts trying to indoctrinate kids on the fact that what we did was correct, right? I want to make sure that no, teacher, it's not about you. It's about young people. We're talking social justice, so we're talking primarily young people of color anyway.
I think that's definitely timely. It's almost like you knew this legislation was coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's perfect timing. And Principal Kafele, is it designed like your other principal and assistant principal 50, where it's bulleted by those points?
50 questions. So it's 50 self-reflective questions. You know, it's interesting. When I wrote my first 50 book, which was the Principal 50, I had written 2 previous books that had 50 self-reflective questions, but I didn't call it 50. So then when I wrote the Principal 50, it was meant to be this little, ASCD has this category of books that are like very short, like 50 pages. I forget what they call it. And when they read it, they say, you can't leave it as one of them. This got to be a standalone. I said, well, but I didn't write that many words for it to be a standalone. They said, well, add some more words and we'll take care. So I went on and did that. And then I gave it this title. And they said, but you keep using them 50s in your books. Let's call it the Principal 50. I said, bam. Why did I do that, right? So then from there, I went on and wrote the Teacher 50, the Aspiring Principal 50, and the Assistant Principal 50. And for some reason, the Is My School a Better School Because I Lead It, which was 35 questions. I could have easily added 15 more, but I didn't want that book to have a 50 on it. And here's why. Because when I wrote Is My School a Better School Because I Lead It, I said to my publisher, I said to ASC, I said, look, because a lot of us as authors, the publisher will retitle it because they'll give it a title that they feel they could sell it better. I can't touch this title, right? You cannot touch Is My School a Better School Because I Lead It. It has to be worded like that. Yes. And it's got to put an emphasis on the word because, right? So they said, okay, we got you. So they put because in big capital letters, yellow font, different from the rest of the fonts. And you know, and that's the only one lately that I haven't put the 50 on, but for that reason, because I needed the reader to see that question and ask oneself, is school a better school because I lead it? You know, but other than that, you know, it's the 50s.
I'm telling you what, that was very wise, because that your Is My School a Better School Because I Lead It? That question really has changed the trajectory of our careers. We were with you at a training, but you did an after training.
South Carolina?
It was in
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And we were there for, we were in awe, which is why we're so starstruck right now. We were there and you were delivering, because that's what you do.
Right.
But in the middle of that, you just threw that out there and you asked the question, is your school a better school because you lead it? Young lady, now I know that was rhetorical, but we took that really personally, and all the way home we were trying to justify, is the school a better school? I hope it's a better school. But that at that moment, it was such a pivotal point, because we knew, and we get what you're saying. You have to be able to say yes, or you really don't need to be there.
Yep.
Exactly.
And if you say no, because I told you I had no days, many of them. But if you say no, then you've got to determine why. What is the reason? If you're going to be honest with yourself,
right?
What is the reason you said no? And now you go back to your office or wherever your quiet space is, and now you start planning. Like, okay, how do I get myself back to my yes? What is my plan for tomorrow? Right. So it's day to day. We're not talking about next week. It's just day to day. What's my plan for tomorrow so that I can go in there tomorrow and take care of business?
Absolutely. And I think Sheikah will agree. I think the reason that it was so impressionable for us is because we weren't at that day-to-day point. We were, is this even what we're supposed to be doing? Like, we about to go do something different. We need to go and figure something out.
Yeah,
But you really did empower us. So
I appreciate that.
we appreciate you. And all of your books are amazing, but that one we really hold a special affinity towards because it really will change your life as a leader.
Yeah, it will. And you know, I got the teacher question: are my students at an advantage because I am their teacher?
Right.
That's it. Those are my top two of all the 50. I have hundreds of these questions, and those are my top two.
And it really made me a more reflective leader. Day to day, like, what went well, what can I change, or what can we do to make it better day to day, year to year. So
absolutely,
the goal is definitely to always
get better
and make sure we're doing what's best for children.
and be better.
We've already pre-ordered the book. We put it out there. And when does it come out?
Supposed to come out tomorrow. It's tomorrow. They told me it's at the warehouse now, so it'll be shipping out, and so tomorrow's the official release date. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. I'll probably post a couple paragraphs from the book tomorrow morning when I get up, and and then we let it rip. I hear it's really moving in terms of pre-sales on Amazon and ASCD. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited that it is student-centered.
Yeah.
Yes.
We heard a training this year. We had a training this year on active shooter drills and how students from the Columbine shooting, the trauma that they felt. And when they started to describe what the students were experiencing, I was like, wow, that's a lot of our students. They basically are experiencing trauma when you describe them as not wanting to sit down or walking around the classroom, walking out of the class. But a lot of times when you're looking at our students who are in poverty areas or impoverished areas or rural or urban, we label them something else instead of identifying that they have had trauma and trying to figure out how to better help them. So I love the fact that it's student-centered. We can't wait to get it. We're hoping that our state doesn't join these others in legislation, but South Carolina has disappointed us a lot. So we'll just wait and see. With our parents that are tuning in, what's your advice? Like, our whole platform is about educators, parents coming together. What should we be fighting for in states that are passing this legislation?
As far as parents
and educators joining forces, what should we be contacting our legislation about?
Getting involved, contacting legislators for sure, being armed with the information so that you can speak to them about, from a vantage point of strength, that this is something that is absolutely necessary. And I think for me, it makes the most sense when you go back to say this is a part of the American story, right? So if the American story hurts, it just is what it is. This is the American story. I talk about a lot, and I won't go off on a tangent on this, but for example, you think about the origins of America, right? In terms of the colonies fighting against the British. Well, I had, as a youngster, I had zero interest in that story because the way it was taught to me in those days was that it's white continental soldiers fighting against white British soldiers, while the African Americans are the enslaved population. So that didn't move me. But then when I become a voracious reader back at the age of 23, when I got to undergrad school, late bloomer, and I discover that anywhere from 5,000 to 9,000 of those troops on the continental side were Black. And upwards of 20,000 on the British side were Black. I said, wow, that changes everything there. Because now we're talking about Black people who were fighting on two fronts, one on their own freedom, in addition to independence from America. But I would think the primary motivation is I'm fighting to be freed from enslavement. But the fact that these 13 colonies were able to win this war with the participation of Black soldiers. You know, we talk about it a lot in terms of the Civil War, but we don't typically talk about it as much with the American Revolution in terms of Black folks helping these colonies to become independent and ultimately the United States of America.
Mm.
So that's so when we talk about what can we do, it's making these folks in political power, these legislators, understand we're only talking about telling the American story.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but the American story, in terms of the African American population, when we talk about Black history, then we're essentially talking about the relationship between Blacks and whites, because you can't talk Black history about that dynamic.
Right.
So you're gonna have to talk about race when you
Mhm.
talk about the truth of America, but that's just what it is. You can't avoid that. You can't legislate that out of the conversation.
Mhm.
Because then you're doing this, miseducating people, right? The
Mhm.
miseducation of the Negro, old copy, so you won't see the cover looking like this, but you're ultimately miseducating the masses of people because you're not telling the truth about who they are, historically and culturally speaking.
Well, we really appreciate everything that you have done. You've paved the way for so many of us who want to do well by students, who want to be student-centered in education. So thank you for all of your work, for your continued mentorship, for continuing to pave that way for us. To be able to be vocal and not have to just sit back and continue to take things in education. So thank you.
Appreciate you both, and
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
We really do appreciate you. And as Sheikah said, it isn't something that we take lightly. But in addition to just being that voice that resonates with so many people, it really blesses us to see how you really want that narrative to change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you are building people. You're building people. You're building people. You're building people, and it doesn't go unnoticed. We appreciate it.
Appreciate
And
you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. That's fuel for me. Thank you.
And just the fact that you're so down to earth, because we're definitely not on a level where you are. You're a national level. So
And we don't deserve your presence.
Yeah, y'all getting there. You doing it right too. I see you on social media. Yeah.
thank you. And the last question we're going to end this segment with, Tammy and I feel like we have survived our principalship. A lot of people talk about how it's lonely at the top. One thing that we have called each other during this entire 5-year process is one another's trust mates. And we actually are working on a project where we're describing that story and telling people how it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. That's the title of our book. We call each other trust mates. In your journey in leadership, who was your trust mate? Who was that person that was a go-to person you could depend on?
Yeah, I had two, and they were both assistant principals of mine. I was blessed to have assistant principals who were friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first one, the first one we got to become friends. We knew each other, but we weren't tight. But we became friends on the job. We're lifelong friends, and I could lean on him. He could lean on me. I was a little older than him, but that was okay. He was a brand new assistant principal, and I was a brand new principal.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in my third school, my longtime friend, who will probably be my first guest when I start interviewing on Saturdays, Dr. Vincent Stallings, and he doesn't know that yet. I didn't tell him, but he sees this, he knows now. His first assistant principalship, his first assistant principalship was with me.
Mm-hmm.
We had been friends since we were in high school. We were teenagers, and it just worked out that way. So we leaned on each other. We still do. Daily, and that's what it is. So those were my two in terms of folks on the job.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being with us. We can't wait to get the book. We know that it's going to be a great help. We need all of the help that we can get in this ever-changing field of education, but we really want to do things that are right by children. So Again, we appreciate your work and thank you for being with us.
I thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
And if you want to hang out for story time, I'm going to put you backstage and bring Mr. Harvey forward.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch him on my phone.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you, Principal Kafele.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Have a great one.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. All right, Mr. Harvey, thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're excited that you're with us.
Yes. Another part of our work that Tammy and I do outside of leadership and helping principals and literacy is our literacy work. So one thing that we're very passionate about is making sure that students have access to culturally relevant books. So we always end our time with story time. So we appreciate you being here. I'm going to read your bio. Darryle Harvey was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. While in high school, Mr. Harvey discovered poetry and a love for writing. In 2003, Mr. Harvey self-published his first book of poetry, Loving a Black Woman. Mr. Harvey is the creator, director of the Black Child Book Fair and author of the Sunflower series for children. Mr. Harvey was inspired to write his first book for children, I Can Do Anything, after mentoring a young boy. The book was well received, and Mr. Harvey continued to write books to help uplift young readers. His books focus on social and emotional learning and include subjects such as self-esteem, integrity, and dealing with bullies. Mr. Harvey is also the founder of the Chicago Black Authors Network. Mr. Harvey's mission is to take the Black Child Book Fair globally and help influence and empower youth everywhere. So we are very excited about your very important work. It definitely aligns to what Tammy and I do.
Definitely.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I appreciate being here. I began the Black Child Book Fair 2 years ago, starting in Chicago. Tried it out for the very first time, and the support from the community was incredible. So it dawned on me that Chicago is but one urban community, and that there must be other urban communities that need our work. And surely enough, there was a study done by the University of Wisconsin in Madison 3 years ago, 2018, that stated in children's literature, when it comes to diversity, when it comes to seeing the images, the animated images in those books, 50% of those images were white. 27% of those images were animals. Only 10% of the images at that time conducted in that study were Black.
Right.
So you have hundreds, maybe thousands of African-American authors that are independent out here trying to get their work out into the world, trying to be seen. And I just decided, man, now is the time. So 2018, we began Chicago. Right before the pandemic hit last year, we did Chicago, Indianapolis, and St. Louis. Here we are, 2021. We are in the middle of our spring summer tour. Not one city, not three cities, but 6 cities currently.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
We've done Chicago. We've done Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville treated us so well. We were just in Tulsa, since you guys were talking about Tulsa. We were just in Tulsa on Sunday, 2 days ago. And it it's just amazing. So further down the road, Juneteenth, we're doing Philadelphia. July 10th, Silver Spring, Maryland. July 31st, Charlotte. And we're also preparing a tour to go to the South in the fall.
Okay.
That's awesome work.
Yes.
And be sure to place in the comments when this is over how people can follow your tours and find out where you'll be in what cities so we can support Tammy and I became familiar with exactly those statistics you were talking about after hearing some presentations by Dr. Akua.
Yeah.
And that's where we had the epiphany that, this may be connected to some of the problems we're having with reading achievement in our schools. So we became very much more intentional about making sure our students had access to culturally relevant text. And we also want to help other school leaders do that. So a lot of our work is centered around that.
Especially the representation of children of color, so that people, they can connect, because as Sheikah said, when children are disconnected, they sometimes don't even enjoy the read. So your work is admirable, and we salute you for that.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I'm taking Black authors across the country, and
that's
by
great.
2022, we will more than double the number that we're doing this year.
That's great.
It's awesome. Well, it is story time. We are not going to parlay. We're going to turn it over to you and let all of the parents get their children, and we say the little ones and the big ones, because everyone loves a good story.
Yes.
So we are looking forward to, tell us what you're reading.
Okay. Since we're doing story time, I'm doing actually the story that set it all off. This is my very first book, which, as I mentioned before, I was mentoring a young man. He was only 5 or 6 years old. Everyone in his life was female.
Mm-hmm.
He lived with his mom and his sister. He had a female teacher. He had a female babysitter. So I was brought on, asked to spend time with him as a male role model.
Mm-hmm.
And when our time was over, I wanted to give him something to remember our time with. So I wrote, let's see if we can get that in there.
And we're going to put ourselves backstage.
Yes, I'll get out of the way.
Bigger. Yeah. So we're going to turn it over to you.
Okay. So this is I Can Do Anything, which stars this little guy. His name is Stevie. And as you can see, he is a very happy, positive, strong Black man, young man, standing there, very sure of himself. And this is a rhyming story that reinforces the message that he can do anything. My name is Stevie, and I can do anything. I can stand up tall, I can bounce a ball. I can do anything. I can run quick, I can do a flip. I can do anything. I can wash my face and tie my shoes. And when the bell rings, I go to school. In my classroom, we learn and sing. My teacher says we are all smart and we can do anything. I know my colors, red, yellow, and blue. There's nothing I can't do. I know my numbers. I can count too. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was easy. I know more. 5, 6, 7, 8. Being smart feels great. I can make shapes into what I want them to be. I see triangles when I look at Christmas trees. I see squares when I look at windows and picture frames, and circles when I look at tires, donuts, and rings. When I use my head, I can do anything. After school, I play with my friends and pretend to be a king. We all ride horses and save the world. I can do anything. At night, mommy and daddy tuck me in my bed to dream. I close my eyes and know I can do anything. And that's I Can Do Anything.
That is incredible. Awesome story.
Yeah.
Thank you. And at the end of this story, there is a small questionnaire for processing. You can ask your child, Stevie can do all these things. What can you do?
Yes.
Love that.
It is great.
And
Thank
Stephanie Allen says she's ready to purchase. She teaches pre-K. So
I saw that, and she's in Chicago, and I saw the neighborhood that she's in. You're only 2 neighborhoods away from me, 15 minutes maybe.
oh
Wow.
Awesome.
So
Yes.
I can be reached. The books can be purchased on my website, harveywritersgroup.com, and just look for books. There's a tab that says books.
Okay. And we'll definitely add that link to the comments as well, because we definitely want people to be able to keep up with your tours as well as purchase your books.
Yes, and support the authors that you're touring.
Yes.
Exactly. And also for more information about the tours, more up-to-date information, Black Child Book Fair we have a page on Facebook, and Black Child Book Fair also has an Instagram page.
Great.
That is awesome. And we look forward to helping you when you come to the Columbia area, as well as one of your, we spoke to you before about becoming a sponsor. So we look forward to that.
And he said Charlotte, Chica, so we'll be able to.
Yeah, I would also like to set us up in Columbia.
Yes.
So we should talk some more.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Yes.
And I'm going to put you backstage while we close out.
All right.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to share my screen. We have had some phenomenal information provided to us by Principal Kafele.
Yes.
Let me go back here. Here we go. As I talked about with our work, Tammy and I work with independent authors. We have the catalog that you saw at the beginning of the show that we send out to educators across the country, just helping them become more familiar with independent authors' work. Lots of work that's culturally relevant for students to be able to connect to. So we just want to provide some equity around independent authors learning the process of getting into schools and doing business with K-12 schools, becoming vendors. But we also want to make our colleagues more aware of thinking outside of the box and do things differently, a little bit different than we've always done. This is Hannah's Wish that we've recently recorded and pre-released around a book, one of our authors that we're working with. It shows a young lady who gains her mobility. She's in a wheelchair, and a lot of times you don't see young children like this as the main character of a book. So we wanted to make sure our students, developed more empathy around this topic. So Hannah's Wish is our pre-recorded literacy event that you can gain access to through the Eventbrite link. And I'm not going to show the preview, but you can definitely see it on our page. I'm very excited about presenting with Stimulate Learning at the CASA conference that's actually tomorrow, Achieving an Equity-Driven Education. Our presentation is Black Male Steps Towards Restoration in K-12, and we will be talking about a lot of the equity and social justice issues that we've discussed today, but in more depth. So we're very excited about that. So if you have not purchased a copy of Tammy and I's book that we are a part of, Women Who Lead in Education, independent authors can gain some insights about solving problems in schools. School leaders can definitely gain a lot of nuggets about just leading your schools daily. There's so many phenomenal women featured with us who are doing great things in education.
Absolutely.
So thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
And we look forward to seeing you all back with us next Tuesday.
Yes, happy Tuesday night. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Join Sheikah and Tammy on the collaborative. Let's go! The collaborative. 1, 2, 1, 2. The collaborative. What's that time? On Facebook Tuesday at 7.